Nolan and I had just finished a workout, and Randy at that time was pitching with Seattle, and we were sitting in the first base dugout. Randy's sizzling the ball by. I look down. He finished his workout, and he walks by our dugout. And I said, "Randy, you doing all right?" He said, "Nah, man, I'm having trouble. Can't throw strikes." And Nolan pops up and said, "Hey, Randy, we're going to be here tomorrow about this same time. Why don't you all stop by, and we'll work on some things." So we did. We made one small change in Randy's stride and the way he landed. 3 weeks later, he struck out 18 of us in 8 innings. Probably cost me my job. I think I got fired that fall. I'm Tom House, Thomas R. House, PhD. I'm a performance analyst. The highlight of my major league career was catching Henry Aaron's 715th home run. Got me in the Hall of Fame, all right? That's the good news. You know the bad news? That was the highlight of my major league career. I had one good year. My career went marginal, really, really good, marginal. And that one good year was the year I caught Henry Aaron's 715. I ran it right in and gave it to him. He was hugging his mom at home plate, tears in his eyes. "Here it is, Henry." It was special, really special. The only sport that I could compete with at a higher level was baseball because I'm not real big and I didn't throw real hard. But I was told early on if a left-hander can throw a curveball for a strike, he can play. So I mastered a curveball early, put up good numbers in high school, got to go to the University of Southern California on a baseball scholarship. And I was there with Tom Seaver and Billy Lee and Dave Kingman and Steve Busby. And 15 of the 25 guys on that team got to the big leagues, so I got lucky. They were really good and I was like not so good, but good enough to actually sign. But when I got to USC, I saw that, all pitchers aren't created equal. Throwing a bullpen next to a Tom Seaver was an eye-opener for me. Some people just get it. They're like superstars without even trying. When I started asking questions, I just couldn't get answers. So basically, I started looking for why. Most athletes on the elite level are unconsciously competent. They're really, really good, but they don't know why. If I can't throw any harder than 82, 83, how can I make my fastball look like it's faster? So I learned how to pitch backwards. Pitching backwards basically is what people are calling effective velocity today. So I went slow curveball, slower curveball, changeup, fastball. So after 3 slow pitches, my fastball at 82 looked like it was 100. There's a why and a how for Tom House to pitch in the big leagues. What made me want to be a pitching coach was, as a player, I got a lot of instruction that didn't make sense. So I made a vow to myself that if I was going to be a coach, I wanted to make sure whatever I gave an athlete, that it was real and supportable, not just opinion. When I was winding down my career as a major league pitcher and deciding to get into coaching, things on the science side of the equation were presenting themselves. 3-dimensional motion analysis, wireless EMG. In other words, the tools to measure and quantify the things we were just guessing at before were available to me where 5 years earlier wouldn't have been there. There were a lot of things that we were teaching based on what our eyes were seeing, but our eyes can only see about 40 frames a second, and most of what takes place with a pitcher's delivery take place at 1/200th to 1/250th of a second. So our eyes couldn't actually see what was going on. And once we got probably 25 or 30 captures and started looking at what pitchers were actually doing, I said to myself, you know what, we're going to have to kind of let some of these old school teachers go because it just isn't what's happening. So that was an epiphany there also. Our models were all generated by the best of the best, and we worked backwards from there. So that was huge. I got to get Hall of Famers right out of the chute in both football and baseball. So my learning curve started with guys like Nolan Ryan and Charlie Huff, and then elite athletes like Kevin Brown and Kenny Rogers, and guys who'd end up, pitching 24, 25 years in the big leagues. I was learning on the go, and what Nolan and those guys had figured out intuitively, we just quantified science-based. Biomechanics, briefly, are laws of physics applied to the human body. Biomechanics are timing, and then kinematic sequencing. Think of legs, hips, shoulders, arms, implement. And then the mechanics of the actual skill itself, balance and posture, basically, keep your eyes level. Hip and shoulder separation, delayed shoulder rotation, torque. So we've been able to identify through high-speed motion analysis the efficiencies that are necessary to throw or swing efficiently. Nolan came to the Texas Rangers. He was told that he was pretty much done. The Astros didn't want to re-sign him. His velocities were down. His command was down. He came for two reasons. He knew Bobby Valentine, who was the manager. And then I had known him. I was actually a pitching coach in the minor leagues with the Astros and got to know him. And he knew that we were doing something new with motion analysis and research. So when he came to the Rangers, the aging process was starting to show up. We basically did what I do now, but on a much more basic level. We just looked at the way he trained, we looked at his throwing workloads, we looked at his mechanical efficiency, and we tried to figure out with his age, what can we do different to recapture what he had 5-6 years ago and lengthen what he can do for the next 5 or 6 years. With the aging process, you lose flexibility, you don't lose strength. You lose flexibility and your nervous system can't move quite as fast. And then the recovery side of the equation, it's a little harder to recover at age 40 than it is at age 20. So with those parameters, we just started brainstorming and trying things. He did less running on the field. We had him do more pool work, running in the pool. He liked to throw. He really enjoyed throwing, but we kept him off the mound in between starts because mound work in between starts was a recovery issue. It took more out of his arm. When you move, it's weight transfer and foot-pounds of energy translation. So when you walk, if you weigh 200 pounds, with each step, you land with X amount of foot-pounds of energy. And if you're moving quickly, it's about 4 times body weight in foot-pounds of energy. We're designed to work on flat ground. But when you get on a mound, it's not 4 times body weight, it's 6 times body weight. It improves your arm speed going forward, but it puts more stress on your arm in deceleration. So that was what was unnatural. And that's what we kind of stumbled into a protocol that allowed him to get his mound work in, but have most of the workloads only take place in the game. If you go back and ask anybody my age about me, it's, oh, he was the guy that threw the football. They think that's all I did, which is okay. We threw the football as part of our training for pitchers. We found that you can't throw a football and make it spiral if you have bad mechanics. And also the football was heavier than baseball, so there was strength training going on. That combination helped mechanics and helped functional strength. It was a cross-specific drill that for the same time and throws spent gave you 2 times the bang for your effort. We try to do that wherever possible. And they were only supposed to throw it, but boys will be boys. They kicked it and ran pass patterns and played flag football. It was an interesting dynamic, which frustrated a lot of people. Oh, that house and these damn footballs. You know how that goes. Anyway. Where Nolan was unique, he was the first guy that I learned about active rest from. He really would not do anything pitching-wise in the off-season, but he'd throw, he'd play golf, he'd do things that kept him active physically. He did a lot of stuff in the pool, did a lot of stuff on stationary bike. We found that you could get your aerobic activity just as efficiently from a stationary bike as you did with jogging for distance. We turned his long toss almost into a science. He had a fetish about long toss. He actually believed that if he could have efficiency in long toss and accuracy in long toss, it would help him on the mound, which is exactly what it did. We would start off, instead of casting the ball like they do today, he would try to one hop. We called it the hat drill. He'd put the hat out on the ground at 90, 120, and 150 feet and try to hit it on a one hop. And that was his long toss program. And what it forced him to do was get the same extension that he was, as he would if he was casting the ball, but he was releasing the ball out front, what he called riding the ball. I want to ride the ball. I want to grunt out front. A lot of people are doing stuff that we initiated 15, 20 years ago. They don't know where it came from. Especially like with the towel drill and the long toss and the way they lift weights. When I first got to the big leagues with the Rangers, we were one of 3 teams that had a weight room and a conditioning coach. Now they have them in big leagues and minor leagues. And the reason it carried, because it worked with Nolan. The old school thinking about lifting weights was that it bound a pitcher up. He would lose his flexibility. And that was only if you lifted improperly. So the research we were doing, if you worked 3 muscle groups and 2 muscle groups and the accelerators and the decelerators, and you flexed rather than stretched, and you only lifted as heavy as you were going to take out of your arm.
He was one of those guys that tried to get better every day. Not a lot better, just a little bit better every day. Total commitment. He was a better pitcher from age 39 to when he retired at age 47 than he was in the previous years. He got the advantage of the new technology, the new motion analysis, the conditioning that we did. He would have been a Hall of Famer anyway, but under the Texas Ranger flag, he threw 3 no-hitters and literally was a better pitcher with walks, strikeouts, ERA, the whole 9 yards than he had been in the previous 17 years. Randy and Nolan were the consummate fastball people in the major leagues at that time. So we're in Seattle. Nolan and I had just finished a workout, and Randy at that time was pitching with Seattle. And we were sitting in the first base dugout, which was the Ranger dugout, and balls were sizzling by us at 120 miles an hour. And we looked down, and Randy's in the bullpen. Randy's sizzling the ball by. I look down. He finished his workout, and he walks by our dugout. And I've known Randy since USC when he pitched there. And I said, "Randy, you doing all right?" He said, "Nah, man, I'm having trouble. Can't throw strikes." And Nolan pops up and said, "Hey, Randy, we're going to be here tomorrow about this same time. Why don't you all stop by and we'll work on some things." So we did. We sat down as a group the next day and made one small change in Randy's stride and the way he landed. 3 weeks later, right here in Arlington Stadium, old Arlington Stadium, he struck out 18 of us in 8 innings. Probably cost me my job. I think I got fired that fall.
So there's a way to get someone to get a movement done without specifically saying what the movement has to be. So all I did was tell him to stop landing on his heel, to land on the ball of his foot. And what that did, instead of landing and spinning, was it redirected his energy, his vector. So I said, land on the ball of your foot, not your heel. And in today's words, I said, your bottom half, your stride vector is all out of whack. You need to move yourself a little bit on the rubber. That was before I had to teach. I just knew that if we told him to land on the ball of his foot, that it would help his direction. And that's the one small thing that clicked it all up. Who cares how they get it, as long as they get it? And that's the true test, in my opinion, of a real instructor. There's one set of rules, but there's a million ways to teach them.
Basically, without bragging, I'm very proud of the fact that not only were they clients, they ended up being friends. And it's the pay it forward thing. They ended up helping people. And I think the reason we're here talking today is because the information has been disseminated by people with the credibility of a Nolan Ryan or a Randy Johnson. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. So one of the things I'm most proud of in the people that I work with underneath the Tom House Sports umbrella, whether it's NPA or 3DQB, is the coach tries to identify right away how this athlete learns, and we tailor our information and instruction to fit that athlete's capacity. Just knowing an answer isn't enough. You got to figure out how to get the answer in his head where he's in charge, not you.
This was one of those lucky things. They were doing a reality show over in India. That's what it started off to be. The premise of the reality show is if there's whatever the population of India is, there has to be 10 or 12 kids that can throw a ball 95 miles an hour. They saw 30,000 kids, and it trickled down to where they had a final 5, and any one of those kids that could hit 95 plus would win $1 million. Well, it turned out that 4 of them got close. Rinku and Dinesh, who ended up coming to me, hit 93, 94, but nobody could get over the 95 plane. A guy known for 25 years who was an international scout called and said, we just looked at 30,000 kids. We've got 4 kids that I think with your help, they could throw 95 miles an hour. So it turned out that the people that did the reality show ended up paying both Rinku and Dinesh, I think $25,000 each, but they won the right to come and work with us at USC to see if we could prepare them to sign a pro contract. When they came over, they were 18 and 19. The story is a true story. It's a big warm fuzzy. So they showed up having never played anything. They really didn't even know how to play catch. And if you've seen the movie, it's pretty much self-explanatory. And 6.5 months later, both those kids signed with the Pirates. Both of them throwing 95 plus. And Rinku, he played for almost 6 years. Dinesh went home, and now Dinesh is in Mumbai. He's the best pitching coach in India. You know why? He's the only pitching coach in India.
So we're pretty good at what we do, not because of opinion, but because, again, we hit the technology perfect. And because of the why guy, we're taking the technology and the why and turning it into what?
What do you think makes you most unique as a coach?
Not getting my feelings hurt when people boo me or telling me I'm wrong. The belief in that if you're pure in your intentions and you're searching for the truth and you don't mind being embarrassed when people make fun of you, it's called authenticity, I think. In the long haul, if you're statistically validated, you're science-based, you're measurable and deliverable, it all wins out.